I grew up in a loving and ordinary family surrounded by good friends. Everything about me was pretty average: my looks, my academics, and my athletic abilities. However, I felt incredibly fortunate to have supportive people around me. Perhaps because of this, I tend to trust people a bit too easily. This trait has often led people to call me naive or overly trusting. This story is about my troublesome mother-in-law, who often bullied her trusting daughter-in-law. My name is Mary. I'm 31 years old and work as a salesperson. My husband Jake and I got married just a year ago, so I still feel like a newlywed. I used to think about starting a family and would often say, let's have a baby. But truthfully, I was still enjoying the blissful early days of our marriage. Jake's parents live about 20 minutes away from our apartment. His mother, Diane, would often invite us over for dinner, and we'd enjoy a family meal together once a month. Some of my friends expressed concern, asking if visiting my in-laws that frequently was too much. But Jake's dad, Tom, is a great conversationalist, and Diane is quite sweet, so I didn't mind at all. Besides, Diane prefers to handle the kitchen herself, so I was treated like a guest. I would happily join Jake and Tom for a game until dinner was ready, which was easier than cooking at home. However, there was one thing that concerned me. One evening, we were at the in-laws' house for our regular family dinner. When I tasted Diane's chicken soup, I almost groaned aloud. "What's wrong, Mary?" Jake asked, looking at me curiously. "Oh, we never had celery in chicken soup at my parents' house, so I thought it was interesting." "It's delicious, Diane," I replied. "Is it? Thank you. There's plenty more," Diane said, smiling. I struggled to smile back at Diane, who seemed pleased. The soup was incredibly salty, and I wasn't sure I could manage another bowl without raising my blood pressure. I glanced at Jake and Tom, but they were happily enjoying it. This was normal for them. Once again, I forced myself to eat the soup, which had so much sodium it could have dissolved a rock. It seemed my in-laws had a preference for intense flavors. Diane's cooking was sometimes as salty as seawater and at other times as sweet as condensed milk. The first time I tried it, I nearly spat it out. Yet the rest of the family ate it as if it were perfectly normal, and I was astonished by their taste preferences. I felt bad leaving food on my plate, so I usually ate everything, but it was often too much for my stomach to handle. I was worried about the impact such heavily flavored food could have on their health. I consulted with a friend who was a nutritionist and began collecting recipes and pamphlets on healthier cooking. But as a new daughter-in-law, I couldn't exactly say, "Your cooking is too rich in flavor. Please modify your recipes." At home, I cooked meals seasoned according to recipes, thinking that would be more flavorful for Jake. I constantly asked him, "Is it good?" Every time he sweetly replied, "Whatever you cook is delicious." But given his upbringing on such rich food, I doubted he was being entirely honest. Nonetheless, I prioritized our health and continued cooking with normal seasonings. There was another thing that concerned me. Diane sometimes served stale food. The bread on my plate would be dry and hard, and occasionally, dessert would include partially rotten fruit. I discreetly avoided the parts I couldn't eat, but I worried that my in-laws might eventually get food poisoning. One day, Diane offered me some cookies as a snack. However, I noticed they had expired 6 months ago. Jake noticed too and alerted her. "Mom, these cookies are expired." "Oh no, I'm so careless," Diane said, laughing it off. I was relieved she didn't take it seriously, but I was startled when I found the same box of cookies mixed in with a snack bag she gave me during our next visit. I had seen this kind of forgetfulness before when my grandmother developed dementia. What should I do? Diane is only in her 50s, but I began to worry that she might have dementia. I wanted to talk to Jake about his mother's overly seasoned food and her possible signs of dementia, but I was afraid it might be too much for him to handle. Then one day, a small miracle happened to us. I found out I was pregnant. Jake was thrilled. "I'm finally going to be a dad. Is it a boy or a girl?" He would stroke my belly every day with excitement. "When are we going to tell our parents? Should we wait until the end of the first trimester?" "Well, the doctor only just confirmed the heartbeat, but I want to tell them after the 12-week checkup, just in case something happens. I guess we just have to wait and see. I can't wait to tell everyone. I think my mom's gonna cry when she hears the news." "You're right," I said, imagining Diane congratulating me with tears in her eyes. The thought warmed my heart. I was so excited about the long-awaited pregnancy that I had completely pushed my worries to the back of my mind. The following weekend, however, when I saw Diane's chicken soup on the table, I realized there was a big problem. If I ate her over-seasoned food, it might affect my baby. The pregnancy books I've been reading said that high blood pressure and diabetes could negatively impact pregnancy and childbirth. Stale bread and expired foods might be okay for me, but they could harm my baby. The thought made me anxious, and I couldn't bring myself to start eating. Oh no, Mary, you haven't eaten at all. I hope it's not too bad for your taste, Diane said, looking at my plate with a frown. No, it's not that, I quickly replied. She's just tired and doesn't have much of an appetite, Jake said, thinking it was morning sickness, and rushed to save me. I see. Are you working too hard, Mary? Don't push yourself too much, Tom added kindly, but Diane's face remained grim. I felt guilty for leaving the food untouched and for lying to them. After everyone else finished their meal, Diane offered me a large brownie topped with ice cream and a cup of tea. Have some sweets, at least. I'm sure it will relax you. Thank you so much, Diane, I said. What a thoughtful person. I decided I would at least have a bite, even though I'd been getting heartburn from sweets lately. I noticed that Jake had a smaller piece without ice cream. I whispered to him so Diane wouldn't hear from the kitchen. Jake, can I switch with yours? Huh? Oh sure, he said, passing me his plate. I cut a thin piece with my fork. It was moist and soft. I put it in my mouth and washed it down with tea. Huh? This brownie is a little hard, Jake said as he cut his brownie in half. No. Diane suddenly screamed, bursting out of the kitchen. My heart jumped at her outburst. Jake looked equally puzzled as Diane snatched the brownie from his hand. Why are you having Mary's brownie? I gave it to her. It doesn't matter who eats it. Yes, it does. That one is outdated. What? Jake exclaimed, shocked. The unexpected revelation left us all silent. Confused by her admission, I asked, that brownie was old. I didn't notice because the ice cream was melting on top. My words didn't help the situation. Instead, they confirmed that there was malice in Diane's actions. In other words, she had tried to disguise the staleness with ice cream. Isn't that right, Mom? Jake asked Diane with chilling calmness. Diane quickly tried to make things right. No, that's not it. It's old, but it's big and still tasty, so I wanted Mary to have it. Then why did you stop me so forcefully from eating it? You gave it to Mary even though you knew it wasn't safe to eat. No way. I finally realized what was happening and a shiver ran down my spine. Have you been feeding me stale food and giving me expired snacks on purpose? I asked, my voice shaking. What? What's going on, honey? Tom glared at Diane like she was a stranger. No, not on purpose. I just happened to have some leftovers and I didn't want to waste them. So I gave them to Mary, Diane said, trying to defend herself. That's what you call on purpose. I can't think of any good reason to make someone else eat bad food that you don't want, Jake said, his anger barely contained. But she's not really our family. She's an outsider, so why not give her the old food, right? Diane continued, her voice dripping with contempt. Mom, I married Mary and became a part of her family too, but I was never treated like that, Jake replied. Diane slammed her hand on the table in panic. As I watched her, my heart sank. The Diane I had loved and admired seemed to vanish before my eyes. I was deeply disappointed, wondering if my positive perception of her had been nothing more than an illusion. I had always believed she was kind and nice. But now, knowing I had been betrayed, she looked like a distressed demon trying to make excuses. Then, another thought crossed my mind. Could all her overly intense food have been on purpose too? What? What are you suggesting? Diane asked, her voice faltering. Tom and Jake exchanged glances. Diane's expression shifted as if she'd been caught red-handed. Jake picked up my bowl of chicken soup. Don't, Jake, Diane cried, but Jake ignored her and took a spoonful. He spat it out immediately. Ew, it's like seawater, he said, grimacing. Tom also tasted the untouched part of my soup and scolded, Mary, have you always been eating food like this? Yes, I thought this was just how it was supposed to taste here since you and Jake were eating it too. That's because ours was normal. I see, Tom said, shaking his head. Jake's shoulders slumped as if all the strength had left him. How could you not realize something was wrong, Mom? It's more than just bad flavor. You've even been giving her expired snacks. I thought she had dementia, I said softly. Diane's mouth twitched with anger. To have a daughter-in-law she despised think she had dementia was a huge insult to her. How pathetic, she muttered. You're so sweet, Mary, Jake said reassuringly. You put up with her because you thought she was sick. Turning to his mother, Jake said, Mom, I can't believe you'd bully such a good person who trusted you. Tom nodded. I never thought Diane was capable of this either. That's why I consulted many people, I explained. I was worried about Diane's health. I thought maybe her taste buds were off and that she might be showing signs of dementia, even though she's only in her 50s. Many people? Diane repeated, alarmed. She hadn't realized her misdeeds had been shared with others. Yes, like my parents, friends, and coworkers. They were all very helpful, giving me tips and pamphlets. I pulled out a stack of pamphlets from my bag and piled them on the table. I had been carrying them around with the intention of talking to Tom and Jake someday. I never thought they'd come in handy this way. Well, you were really worried about her, Tom said, unfolding a pamphlet as if moved by my actions. Of course, Diane was upset. You're terrible. I am not sick. It's you who are terrible, Diane, Tom said. Unlike you, Mary has a pure heart and was sincerely concerned about you. Shut up, Diane shouted, her face twisted with rage. She pointed at me like a demon. I never liked her from the beginning. My beloved son was taken away by a woman like her. Jake's face hardened. Are you calling her dumb? You're the one who failed to see what an amazing woman I married. You were fooled by her, Diane yelled. In front of me, my in-laws had a fierce argument. Knowing Diane hated me was painful, especially because I had trusted her. Why didn't you tell me before the wedding? Jake asked later as we prepared to leave. If I had known, Diane interrupted, her voice hopeful. Jake, if I had known. I would have cut ties, Jake finished, ignoring Diane's despair. He hugged me tightly. I'm sorry, Mary. I didn't realize how much you were going through. I'm sorry too, I replied. I didn't recognize her intentions. Hideous? Diane's eyes twitched in disbelief. She never expected to be told such a thing by someone she had looked down on. I married you because you're so pure, Jake said to me. Don't worry, we'll never come here again. Wait, you can't. Diane cried out desperately. You were a terrible mother, Jake said, turning away. I won't allow you to treat Mary this way. I'll never let you see your child. Diane shrieked, desperation in her voice. A child, are you? She began, looking at my belly as if the realization suddenly dawned on her. If she had noticed earlier, when I had no appetite, perhaps things might have turned out differently, but she was too preoccupied with her scheming. Let's go, Mary, Jake said, taking my hand. Yeah, I replied, accepting his support and standing up slowly. Wait, I'm sorry, Jake, it was just a small indiscretion. Diane rushed to grab his arm, but Jake dismissed her and said, I'm not the one you should be apologizing to. Diane glanced at me, her eyes still full of disdain. I didn't want to forgive someone who so clearly harbored a grudge against me, so I spoke before she could say anything. I had a lot of trust in you, and you betrayed me. I can't trust you anymore, not for the rest of my life. I can't let someone like you near my precious child. Goodbye. No. Diane collapsed in anguish as we left without looking back, with Tom witnessing our departure, knowing we would never return. It's strange for me to say this, but if only Diane could have cherished our relationship, she could have enjoyed a happy life as a grandmother, surrounded by her grandchildren. What a fool. Later, when I told my parents and friends who had supported me about what happened, their reactions were mixed. You finally realized, some said, either stunned or relieved. Apparently, everyone but me had been aware of the situation. They didn't tell me because I was genuinely concerned about Diane. They listened and collected pamphlets to help me understand when I was ready. One day, when it all finally dawned on me, I felt ashamed and embarrassed, my face burning with the realization. In fact, thanks to the wealth of information everyone had given me, I was able to prove that my concerns were valid. Because of their support, Jake and Tom were entirely on my side. I realized once again how truly blessed I was by the people around me. About 2 years later, I was busy taking care of our little son. Today was his first birthday, and I was hard at work preparing dishes I wasn't accustomed to making: birthday cake, fried chicken, and more. Jake had been a great dad, playing with our son and changing his diapers. In the middle of it all, I got a call from Tom, who had been invited to the birthday party. I picked up the phone without hesitation, thinking he might have a question for me. "Hello? Mary?" The caller's voice was sickly sweet, not Tom's at all. Even after 2 years, I recognized Diane immediately. After we cut ties, we moved to a new place far from her and only told Tom where we were. I also blocked Diane's phone number and had my number erased from her phone. Thanks to Jake and Tom acting as a shield, she didn't make any unwelcome visits when I gave birth, and I had been able to live a peaceful life. Now, just hearing her voice on the other end of the line gave me goosebumps. "Where's Tom?" I asked sharply. "He's in the bathroom right now," she said, dodging my question. "Hey, isn't it my grandson's birthday today?" I didn't think Tom told her, but she might have noticed him discreetly preparing a gift. Jake sensed something was wrong from my tone of voice. He gestured to take over the phone with a worried look on his face, but I gave him a thumbs up and continued the call. I was too much of a mother now. The innocent, lovely wife was a thing of the past. "Listen, Mary, I truly feel bad about what happened. I was wrong to do those mean things. I really regret it," she said, her voice dripping with feigned sincerity. "Huh. So I want to see my grandson soon. I'll buy him lots of cute clothes and toys, see? Okay, well, I don't need you to hide needles in or above the toys, so, no. Thank you. No, I wouldn't do such a horrible thing. I mean, you're exaggerating. I mean, you fed me all those disgusting things. It wasn't that bad, was it? It was. Too much salt, sugar, and mold. Any of it could have destroyed my health. But, I mean it, I really regret it. I'm sure you're kind enough to understand." "You're right. People often say I'm kind." "Yes, you are. But it's not that I'm kind. I'm just naive and trust people too much. If someone betrays me, I will never trust them again." "Huh? You'll never gain my trust again. I won't forgive you. I'll never let you see my precious son." "Wait, Mary," Diane pleaded. "Hey, what are you doing?" I heard Tom yell in the background, and then the sound of them arguing filled the line. I quietly pressed the end button and turned to Jake. "Sorry about that." "You're getting stronger, Mary," Jake said, sighing in relief. He placed his hands on my shoulders, his touch encouraging. Of course, I'm his mother. Our son lay content in his crib, and when he saw me, he waved his tiny hands happily. I picked him up and rubbed my cheek against his. His small, soft body felt perfect in my arms, and his mouth had a faint scent of milk. His eyes, full of curiosity, reflected me. The presence of my son filled me with a powerful protective maternal instinct. For my son, I could be an angel or a demon. I had outgrown my role as a gentle but naive wife. "Oh, it smells so good," Jake said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "It's about time the birthday cake was ready in the oven," I replied, smiling as our innocent son cooed happily in response. Back then, I was oblivious to the malice of others, carefree and happy, but that was only because of the people who protected me. Now it was my turn to protect my family. I was determined to grow stronger and stronger, so that these happy days would continue for a long time.